Wood County leaders taking their fraud fight directly to seniors. Leaders touring senior centers with a program called Frauds and Scams. Spot them and stop them. They're walking folks through common phone, text, and online cons, explaining how crooks play on fear and confusion to steal money and personal information. And the goal here to help seniors recognize the red flags before they hand over their cash and or their identity.
And we found that certain things, certain commonalities are what they use. They use these folks' lack of technical knowledge. They really use fear and urgency. They use their willingness to be cooperative and helpful. Seniors often have more accessible funds than perhaps people who have families and a house mortgage, that kind of thing. And so these scammers will find that information and they will try and target these individuals.
You saw Sheriff Mark Vasilician there. You see him right here. Next fraud presentation will be this Friday morning at 10:30 at the Wood County Senior Center on South Grove in Bowling Green.